Welcome to Bonehead. Today we have some special guests. Chad.
I'm not the special guest.
No, you never will be.
No.
And over here on the computer we have...
James.
Who?
I don't know.
See, James was in an accident, folks. And we're here
Quarantine, they say.
Yes, we're here to do a Kickstarter for James.
He's only a torso and a head.
We also have Bryce Oquaye and Ken Kirk. They're here doing the Kickstarter for him.
Also, the third special guest. James, have you seen the third special guest?
For you all, so I'll just talk to you all. I'm not going to look at the camera. So, we talked about this before. So, James has his hand...
Crap!
has his puppet up this... hand up this puppet's ass for a bunch of episodes and never explains why. And
I'm naked! I'm naked!
And we hid it from him. And now we pulled it out because James isn't here. That's the joke.
Gotcha.
It's not really that funny. All right. So, Bryce, Kim, why are you on our couch? You were doing a comic book. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, we're doing, like you said, a comic book called Wardens Watch that we're doing a Kickstarter for.
Wardens Watch.
Wardens Watch. Yeah, it's a fantasy.
Like a Timex?
Not that kind of watch. More of a creeper looking in your window kind of watch. Not so much
Like a Chad?
Yes.
But he wears a Timex.
Yeah.
Does it have one of the calculators on it?
Well, no, it's a smart one. So he's constantly trying to text on it. It looks
damn
really
it.
weird.
No, it's definitely not one of us if it's a smart one. What are you laughing about? Shut up, computer James. This is so much fun. Why haven't we done this before?
I don't know. James, keep your ass at home. Don't ever come back.
No one likes you, computer James. Dick. So we really don't need to drink that much to have a good time.
Well, sure.
Anyway, go back to Warden's Watch.
Yeah, Wardens Watch. It's a fantasy-based comic book that I wrote and Mr. Bryce illustrates.
A fantasy-based comic book, does that mean it's not real?
Yes.
As opposed to the one he did about Ethel, who lives down the street. Ethel goes grocery shopping. Ethel wanted to get the prunes, but was afraid she'd shit her guts out.
I was going to go for more of a Seinfeld kind of thing where it's just about nothing, but I thought it better be about
This
something.
show is about nothing.
Yeah.
In abundance.
In a beautiful way.
You know. It's three hideous white men talking about pop culture is the thing we always needed. That we didn't have enough of.
Your facial hair is gorgeous, sir.
I've got a little mahogany. I don't know which way you swing. I know I'm married, but I am willing to... Anyway.
So,
He gave
Wardens
it
Watch.
Giggity.
Yeah, he thought about it hard.
Giggity.
The word would be hard, sir.
Yeah. So, Warden's Watch.
As hard as an empty thing of toothpaste.
Shooting dust.
Sorry,
Okay.
go ahead.
Sorry, you threw me off. I thought about all the things.
Had to have water to get my son. Keep going.
So yeah, to kind of build on that, it's just a comic book that we came up with about a dude who is growing old in this mystical forest, who is protecting the forest from evil things that crawl out of it, and some big bad comes in. He's grown real old, and he has to fight it.
Some big bad.
Some big bad, like a monster of the week kind of big
Please
bad.
tell me.
Big, slimy,
Big bad.
big bad.
Right. Okay, please tell me the name is Big Bad.
No. I think I came up with something a little bit cooler. That's something like in the comic.
Maybe it translates into big bad.
So,
Yeah, sure.
Maybe.
I got several different questions, and Chad, feel free to pop in anytime. How'd you guys meet?
The first time we met,
Grinder?
actually, plenty of fish. Plenty of fish goes both ways.
POF. POF was the jam at the time.
Yeah.
And,
I actually know a guy who met his wife on POF.
Well, that's
I
good.
know a guy who met his ex-wife on POF.
Wow, you got it.
Shut up, Computer James!
Sorry, I wasn't ready. I wasn't prepared.
James, Control Alt Delete.
And oddly enough, they're brothers. None of that was. That's all true, and they're both brothers. They're brothers. Anyway, keep going. Let's get past the POF onto any other thing you'd like to talk about.
Sure. But yeah,
On this POS show.
we met at a live art event that we do a lot. The first time I had done a live art event, it's this our dude Justin Stewart
That's the story. Yeah.
takes a whole bunch of 6 foot tall plywood,
Yeah.
and we'll set up at a different place and just sets up 6 different boards. And then as an artist, you get up there, you tape up a poster board, and you just work on art.
Yeah.
And you do it in front of a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, we used to go to there's a venue called the Foundation, and it's called 6 Bomb Boards, and yeah, we all met out there and
Is that
got
here
real
in-
familiar
Is that here in Lexington?
Yeah, at the album
at the album.
on Limestone, the record store,
Yeah.
they would host open mic hip hop night.
Yeah.
And so we Justin brought his boards out there, and I had heard about it, and this was years ago, and I was trying to get back into my artwork, and
Sorry,
One-
James is
sorry.
holding a pussycat.
yeah, sure.
He looks like Dr. Claw.
I'll get you, gadget. oh, whoa, that was good. That was real
That
solid.
was good. Whoa, well done.
That's his day job.
Man.
And so I went out.
I'm so sorry, Ken.
I went out to this live art event for the first time after I heard about it, and that's where I met this dude, and that was your first live art event.
Yep.
And we just started getting to know each other after that, and we started to notice parallels in where we were at with our artwork and everything like that. And sometime last year, I had this idea for a story that was kind of developing. He came to me and said, "Hey, you want to work on something?" I was like, "All right, I got something."
Yeah.
And then we've been working on it ever since.
So, how did you both? And that's great, but how did you? Because the Boneheads have no talent.
I'm not
Hey
arguing.
man, he's got a claw voice.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
Yes, he's ripping off of. Yeah, we all can rip off there. Our talent would be being a-holes. If we had one.
James apparently sucks at holding felines. So you got that going for
That's
you.
the most action James has ever gotten. Wife's out of town, he's let the strays in.
I was going to make a comment, but y'all mentioned beforehand that this is PG, so I'm just going to let it slide.
No.
PG-13, but if you want to go ahead, we have some R-rated
Well,
episodes.
he's already said dick. Is that PG?
I was talking about Richard.
Oh, okay.
Richard Cranium. We call him Dickhead.
Okay, word.
I'm sorry. No, you can say what you want to.
Yeah, say whatever you want.
You can say what you want to. We when it's the three of us, we usually try to keep it PG-13. But when we have guests, it's, as they say in Eastern Kentucky, Katie bar the door. So, back to what the hell was we talking about? Oh yeah, my question was this: how did you guys get into comics and art? Because I don't know that much. Out of the three Boneheads, I know the least amount about comics.
Well,
At any moment, you can chime in and argue with me.
Because I've been talking.
No.
I don't know what.
So how did you get into it? How did you discover that you had talent for drawing? I'm just curious for both of you. Go ahead, Bryce.
I know me personally, it was one of those things that, like, real young, I
Yeah.
always was interested in comics, cartoons, and things like that. And it was one of those options that my mom was presented with, where it was like, hey, it's all these different elements outside. He could either go outside and get in trouble, or I'll buy this boy the comic books he wants. So that was kind of that kickstarted the whole thing.
Yeah.
So then, next thing you know it, after comics, then manga and anime started booming.
Yeah.
And all that stuff kind of hit at the same time. And got real into Joe Mad. Joe Mad got popular. So it was all this stuff that just, it's a flood of comics and animation, and I just never let it go.
Never.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
What was your first comic? Do you have a specific comic?
Yes, I do remember.
Because I remember mine.
My first comic, now I don't remember the number, but my first comic was a Spider-Man comic, and it was a comic where Spider-Man had to go on a spiritual journey. Like, he was distraught about something involving Mary Jane, because she gave him the blues for a long time.
Sure.
Mary
some
Jane
woman in his life.
usually alleviates my blues.
She was giving it to Spider-Man real tough, and he was sad about it. And then Puma showed up
Yeah.
and kind of did the shaman quest thing and took him to the desert, and then he wound up on top of the Statue of Liberty, all cured of his ailments or whatever. That was like the first Spider-Man comic I read. I was like, this is the craziest thing ever. This was also around the time like where it was the supernatural stuff was the thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, so Blade was real popular, Morbius, all that. So Night Stalkers, yeah, that was my jam.
Did you have one?
As far as
Comic that's your first comic?
I honestly, I can't recall like the first comic. I do have a very strong remembrance of a lot of X-Men stuff when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Because I was a kid in the early 90s, and that's when they were making 5 different covers of one issue of X-Men, and that's there was a glossy cover and alternate cover and this and that, and almost completely sunk comic books. But that's what my mom was buying for me as a kid. But as far as like comics that kind of older made me realize, okay, this is something I want to do.
Yeah.
That was definitely more. I'd probably say the biggest influence on that was the Max, Sam Keith.
Yeah.
Sam Keith let me know, because my art style was never the traditional comic book style. Right. Like I love Jack Kirby, but my stuff was never Jack Kirby. But you look at Sam Keith's stuff, he can go from cartoon kind of exaggerated motion to this ultra realistic, like beautiful painting from panel to panel.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of made me realize, okay, I don't have to do this. There are other ways to do this other than just the one.
Yeah.
And it kind of opened that up to me, and then I finally just ran through it.
And that animated show was insane.
Oh yeah, no, like when I was older, my mom caught me a couple of times watching that. She's like, "What is this? What is this?" I was like, "Mom,
The Max. It was.
What the hell is the Max?
do you
go
remember?"
ahead.
I told you I could say we'll talk Kubrick, we'll talk Orson Welles, but you lost me.
He's the only one of
you-
he's the only one out of us that had cable as a kid, and he never saw the Max.
Do you recall on MTV they had this segment late at night? I think it was on the weekends, called The Oddities.
No.
No, because there was
When would this be? Because I'm older than you all.
right. No, I mean it would have been.
I would say 92, 93, maybe.
Yeah,
I was pissed off in high school.
yeah. It might have been then, but yeah, that's where
Wearing a lot of black, trying to grow my hair out, pretending I was something I wasn't.
well, that's where like Aeon Flux came from.
Yeah.
The
there
Charlize
was-
Theron movie, Joe.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar with it. Did you see this?
up a little more. There you go.
There
There
we
you go. Yeah. But yeah, and a lot of weird stuff came out of that MTV show, and that was the first time I saw it. And then I started buying the comic books after it, because the MTV cartoon show wasn't
Close,
the whole series.
1995.
95.
Yeah, well, I would have been a junior.
I knew it had to have been later than 92 because I remember it. And 92,
younger than me.
I was going to say 92. I'd have been like 4 years old. But no, I remember the Max and Aeon Flux and all that stuff. So yeah.
Oh my God, you
About
guys
95,
are,
96.
you're not even 30.
Nah, I turned 30 next month.
Yeah.
I turn 40 next month, sir.
Yeah, what?
Now I want to flip you off.
Sir, I'm
March
37.
21st.
I'm 37.
I'm 23rd.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Sweet, let's go get drunk. You seem nice.
It always kills me because we have tables at conventions, like everybody gravitates to. He's Mr. Charisma, and I'm just a big scary dude standing at my table going, "Buy my artwork." And no,
I gave
everybody.
you a compliment earlier. Christy was asking me who's coming over, and I said, she goes, yeah, did the artwork. I was like, yeah, you know, the taller, better looking version of me. I don't know if that's a compliment or not.
But I think if we combined us both, we would make a decent man. But I think separated, we're just mess.
No, I would never be a decent man in any way, shape, or form. Anyway, we got off topic, but that's kind of that. I'm always fascinated how people get obsessed, because people, to be interesting, you have to have an obsession, and I don't know that obsession is really that bad a thing, because if you do something for the love of it, which clearly you all are doing, then that is an obsession. If you're not getting paid for it, you're spending money on it, like we're doing this podcast, clearly this is an obsession, right?
Sure.
Yeah. That makes you interesting, whether that be art.
So are you saying Fatal Attraction was a feel-good movie?
I'm up until she killed the rabbit, yeah.
All right.
Rabbit didn't do shit to her. And kind of my... Anyway, don't get me started. Don't get me started.
Yeah, I feel
Directed
like
by Adrienne Lynn. See?
I feel like everybody has a thing.
Every interesting person,
Yeah.
I will correct you.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Most interesting people have a thing, and if you talk to them long enough, that I'm always curious how that happens.
Except you mouth heart people. Shut up.
I think
You mean juice heart?
in our
Oh, mouth
situation.
heart.
That's called the juice heart.
Oh, I didn't know that.
James,
Yes. And
Shut
it's
up,
called the
James.
juice heart.
shut up, computer, James. Nobody
I've
asked
got-
you.
The funny part is, if I walked right over here, I have one
F3's
on my
mute.
shelf.
If you walked right over there, you'd break a what?
Yeah.
The blessing, Joe. The blessing.
What if you walked right over here? You do who? What did you say?
Huh?
Oh, Jiminy Christmas!
Anyway.
I bought that poster, the Blackbeard's Ghosts. I bought that. Anyway, sorry. Back to what we're saying. So you guys hooked up. You've been doing this well, you haven't been doing this for years though. You guys are. How long have you known each other?
I'd say probably this is about 5 years now.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that's not that long. Like the guy
Sure,
here is my longest relationship.
Like personally, because before I was able to, meet up with the family, the art family, I was just kind of catching freelance jobs where I could, jumping on little projects here and there, but it didn't really. The solo efforts were so different. You know what I mean? Because as an artist, you catch yourself really like grinding at the table by yourself. You don't realize how much time goes by. But then when you link up with other people and they understand exactly what you're doing, what you're going through, and eventually it kind of brings you out of the box a little bit as well, to where it's like, hey, we all want to just sit here by ourselves. Why don't we talk about it? Because you wind up linking up and then it flies by.
I was gonna say,
And you
isn't
grow.
being an artist really it's a solitary occupation?
It's like writing, James.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Oh yeah.
Writing
Yeah.
is solitary. That's usually the reason when we write things as together is because it is a lonely work.
You gassy, James.
You look like
You
you're
look
concentrating. You're on the toilet, aren't you?
No.
That's
No.
what you're doing. You're concentrating, and you're on the toilet.
No. Look, A,
You know he can't.
Poking your nose. I don't care that he can't see me.
We're giving him.
I actually enjoy not seeing you. I'm not gonna lie.
Aww. We gotta get back to our guests. I'm so sorry. I didn't know that this would be this much fun.
Yeah.
Well, let's start talking about you. So, how you guys are doing a Kickstarter?
Yeah.
Tell me about
Why
that.
did I
We've
want
never
to-
done the Kickstarter thing. We've thought about it. We've thought about that in Patreon. We actually just finished doing our own LLC corporation.
Nice.
I'm not shitting you. But
I've had
anyway.
to do one of those before. It was for a youth football group, and it was a pain in the ass. So,
I paid an
You had to do an
accountant.
LLC for a youth football?
actually, no, I'm sorry. It was a 501c3. So I don't know if that's technically LLC.
I don't know. We
Yeah.
paid an accountant $300, and he said, "Here's some paperwork."
Yeah, I didn't get that luxury.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, no. With Kickstarter, and it was kind of a learning experience, because with Kickstarter, they have all these manuals and everything for you to go. Here are some tips, and they list all those
Yeah.
off. But then we also, we both donated Kickstarters before, so we looked at those and say, okay, what have they done? What worked? What didn't? And you just kind of go from there. But yeah, when you do a Kickstarter, you're asking for a certain sum of money. And then with that certain sum of money, when people pledge, they pledge to a certain tier, and then those tiers, they get certain things. Like for us, it's comics, art, t-shirts.
Sexual favors.
Not quite. That's actually one of what's called a stretch goal. And we'll get into that in a minute. Yeah.
Believe me, my goal will be to stretch it. I am so
Breast
sorry.
Wednesday. I said Brian is Wednesday.
I love having you guys on. Anyway.
But actually, we have heard that there was a Kickstarter at one point in time where a woman, if you donated to a certain tier, came to your house and baked you cookies. Yeah, but we weren't
As a
interested in
fat
that.
man, I would enjoy that.
But like from us, you would get like the Toll House frozen stuff. You don't want that from you don't want that. So we did what we were good at. We offer the comic book, which is like the lower tiers. You can get a digital copy of the comic book for just $2 for pledging. There's also larger tiers where you get the comic book, some concept art.
Well, why don't you go
poster,
through the
things like
tiers
that.
for me? Why don't you tell me so our audience knows like what they could.
Sure, yeah, and I won't go through every single one because there's a lot.
Okay, yeah,
because
that's fine.
we want to make sure that everybody got a little something.
I'm so sorry.
So from the lowest tier, $2, you get a digital copy of the comic book. $2 is still a great donation because you look for as many people as you can for that. Then as you go a little bit further, you get a comic book, the actual physical comic book, plus everything gets the digital. We want to make sure that everybody has it. That's something. Then you get the actual comic. When you get in higher tiers, we have certain promotional poster stuff that you can get a copy of. We got stickers because a lot of comic book collectors will enjoy stickers, and I have stickers all over my art table.
You and I have talked about. I
Yes.
want to talk to you about stickers after we're done.
Sure,
with this.
yes,
We're going to go
definitely.
to another. I've got another question, but keep going.
Definitely. Then when we expand a little bit further, there's a T-shirt involved. An artist friend of ours that I mentioned earlier, Justin Stewart, he's doing a variant cover, so you can get an option of that. And then in the higher tiers, there's commissions that you can get from us. That's around the $100 tier if you want something like that. But then with the commission, you get the comic book, stickers, everything. And then there's also, even in the top tiers, there's what we're doing is combining pretty much everything, putting everything we can into a trade paperback. And that's just a thicker version, and it has my original scripts, his original storyboards, and everything like that all crammed in there. So
All the concept art and early sketches and different things we threw in the book.
Literally.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we have like you said concept art, the prints, right?
Right.
Yeah. And we have for like the later tiers, the actual original pieces. So I think we have for the tier that's like second to last, we offered up 6 pieces of the original concept art, and for the very last tier, we have 4 of the actual comic pages themselves.
Okay.
yeah,
So
the original stuff that he did, pen and paper. It's 36 pages, but we're offering up a few of those because we don't want to give them all away. There's some we want to hold on to, but definitely if people are interested in that, we want to give them that option.
Yeah, so you'll get like all the things from the tiers below and some of the original artwork to go along with it. So it's really cool.
So Chad and James, help me out here, but we were talking, and this will be in another episode, but we were talking to an artist who was he was a storyboard artist, and he also does comics, but he's been a storyboard artist in movies for 30 years, and he was talking about Kickstarter and how much better he liked it than going through a publisher, and how he probably made more money by doing Kickstarter than he did by actually going through a publisher. I don't know what experience you all have had, if you've tried to get published, or what's the...
And here's my take on a lot of publishing stuff without getting word out and getting a feel for how it does is after you grind yourself through a few publishers, your stuff will come out looking like a lot of other things. So with Kickstarter, we understand criticism is obviously needed when you're doing artwork and things like that.
Criticism is, you use the word needed. Criticism will be given to you. The 2 things, there's 2 things, sir, that you will do, both of you, that you will do in life that people will automatically give you advice or criticize. Number one is parenting.
Sure.
Chad?
Sure.
James?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's the number one thing you will get criticized, advice about without ever asking for it is parenting.
Very true.
Just letting you know.
Let me know. He's already got a few.
Very
So
true.
already got a few?
Oh yeah. I know.
Oh my God. I didn't know. I thought I knew, but I didn't know. 2 is anything artistic.
Yeah.
Anything you
Yeah.
create, somebody's going to shit on.
right.
Yeah. But I think that's part of the growing process.
Yeah, it
though.
is.
Because you can separate the ridiculous comments from the actual constructive criticism. And
Yeah.
I definitely think
That's true.
And one thing we've both done is, and one thing I'm more comfortable with is going to conventions, seeing some of your favorite comic book artists, and say, hey, do you have a minute, or how much, or what can I do to get you to take a look at my portfolio, and just like maybe give a couple critiques. But while going through certain, and not all of them, but certain publishers will say things like, this isn't digestible enough or something like that, and that's where everybody comes out and they have the same routine, the same style, and that's something that I don't mind doing after the fact, but I would rather produce what I want to produce and then get it out to people and let them judge.
We don't necessarily, and this goes for anybody, like we don't necessarily have to have anybody tell us what we need to do or how things need to look. Because there's stuff like crowdfunding, because we can throw things online, we can actually have the just the complete freedom to put out the story we want to do our artwork the way that we want. And I think that's one of the best parts of the project that we're doing. Because he wrote an amazing script, and we didn't have to do anything beyond what we felt like doing. And as far as artwork, we just
character design, things like that.
Character design and things like that. Yeah, like we passed it amongst each other, and what he gave the thumbs up on, I expanded on. Yeah. So, and there was no third party in the background telling me what my demographic was. Right. Yeah. And we get to tell a really good story because of it.
That's great. How successful have you been with getting artists? And Ken and I know each other. We've known each other for a few years because of classes, but Comic-Con in Lexington. How successful, and I want to go on to some questions I want to ask you about doing some cons later, but how successful have you about getting artists to actually give you feedback? Because people ask me about when I moderate panels, and I always say, they're, and we've all three of us have talked about this, they're like most normal people. 80 or 90% of them are great, 10% of them are dicks.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, like before Lexington Comic-Con came around, I traveled out, and my first convention that I dove into was Chicago, at Wizard World Chicago, and I went out there. I had this portfolio that I printed and bound, spiral bound. When I look, like if I had it with me right now, I would be embarrassed to show it to anybody. But
you thought you were amazing.
Well, at that time, I was like, man, like because this was I had put something together, and I was like, man, this is great. And I went out to Chicago, and just every artist that I spoke to was just amazing. Like they were like, oh yeah, gave me great feedback, but I felt like it was a little too good to be true. And then I ran into some of the cats that were willing to be very honest with me, and it felt like it ripped your heart out your chest. Yeah. But it was exactly what I needed to grow though. Yeah, because all the positive feedback didn't do anything but inflate what I felt in that moment. Because you're gonna be proud of what you put out in the world, or at least you would think. Right.
Yeah, and at the same time, you still, like, the positive feedback is good because that's going to be like, okay, I'm not going to just completely throw this down, but at the same time, the harsh critique is going to be like, okay, I need to work. Yes. So both of those together work out well.
Yeah, you want to know that you're going in the right direction. And I mean, even if you feel it yourself, like, yeah, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, but it's always good to have somebody else on the outside say, hey, this looks really awesome, because you're making it to share. But like he said, it's a back and forth. You need somebody to kick you in your ass sometimes.
The same person we were talking about was talking about getting the same advice from artists that he had. Yeah, and how it was like looking at him saying, this is shit. And having a lot of people look at you and say, well, this is good. And you are accomplishing something, right? How old were you when you went to Chicago?
Wow, I was probably like maybe 22,
so
23.
You're putting yourself out there. You're trying. You're going in the right direction. Yeah. You just don't know shit.
Yeah, you just don't know anything. Mm-hmm. Well, and you got to approach your projects that same way as well. Man, I've talked about this for the past couple of podcasts actually, where like working on the Wardens Watch was also something that pushed me. because sometimes, you know, if you got something that works, you can become a little bit complacent and not realize it. So you can have something really good going and tell yourself, like, I'm going to get better at this. But then you get wrapped up in other work and things, and you don't actually catch yourself working as hard to improve in certain areas. You're not holding yourself accountable because you've got something that fits.
Right.
So
you get comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, working on Wardens Watch, like, all the detail, because we didn't talk about drawing a forest. So the detail and the stuff that went into this really made me have to push, like, use references more than I ever did.
Yeah.
Push perspective more than I had ever done. So I held myself accountable. Like, I did what I said I was going to do in the first place because I had something to accomplish, you know, something to work on. So pulled a lot out of this as well. You know, it's really fun.
You're talking about holding each other accountable. I'm kind of curious because the three of us have made a lot of short film. Well, we made some short films together, and we do this, and we do this with Haley. This particular, actually, probably the most successful thing we've ever done.
Yeah.
But shut up, James. I'm joking, but it's true. We don't agree on a lot.
I disagree with you.
See. We don't.
It was an easy joke.
We don't agree on a lot, do we?
Shut up, James.
So, we know how our dynamic goes. James and Chad and I have been friends for coming up on 20 years, and James and I and Chad have known each other 15 or 16, and I've watched Haley almost grow up. So
It's not creepy at all.
You know, the one time I'm not trying to sound creepy, I still sound creepy.
Yeah.
Well, it could have been worse. You could have said, I watched her grow up through binoculars, through a telescope, through...
gosh.
Through her
Or
parents' bushes.
I watched her grow up into the sensual woman she is today. There, I made it worse. There you go. Anyway,
If you say
That won't end up on
if you say
news.
sensual in front of anything, it just immediately qualifies as creepy.
sensual.
See, when he says it, I'm okay. You say it, ugh.
But we don't. Getting past sensual.
That's another voice compliment. I'm batting 100, bro. Each podcast, somebody, you know,
Gives you a compliment on your voice.
Yeah, man, I'm starting to feel like I should put out like a neo soul album or something.
Honestly, you may want to. It may be the career you know, because we never wanted to do a show or a podcast, and people kept saying, "Why don't you do it?" But Chad was the only one who was like, "Well, I think we should do it." Anyway, back to how much has the arguing been? Have you argued a lot? Because there has to be a little bit of give and take, and I'm just kind of curious how that dynamics work between the two of you. You've known each other 5 years, but there's a difference between being friends and working on something.
Right, exactly.
True enough.
And you and to a certain extent, you have to respect the other person to say, okay, what is their thumbprint on the project?
Yeah.
And what works best for it. Like, for example, when we were going back and forth on character design, I know Bryce's work. I don't want him to draw exactly what's in my head because I'm asking him to be the artist.
That makes sense.
So I want his thumbprint on there. But when he was doing panels, and this is something we discussed along the way, there was a panel that I had specifically in there for a specific reason that he kind of switched around a little bit to fit his vision. And I was like, okay, well we need to work on this because this panel needs to say this message visually.
Yeah.
And he goes, and that's kind of how we worked. Is the respect involved in it needs to be part him as well, but I still, with me being the writer, it still has to convey the message I'm trying to send out.
Yeah, I understand.
And being familiar, you know, and being familiar with his writing style because, you know, I read his comic book, and you know I know him well, so being familiar with his writing style and his approach to things, like I knew in many regards that like my explosive way of doing things was gonna need to be dialed back a bit so I could focus more on like some of the imagery. Right. And again, it pushed me. Like it made me have to do things in a different way. You know, learn in the process. I don't think it was so much like we didn't really have like any disagreements as much as we just kind of threw things in the bowl, and it was kind of like, okay, you know, this is how we need to mesh this together. And with him being the writer, you know, he's piloting the ship. You know, so you really want to make sure you respect the writer's vision,
Right.
for sure. It's
Didn't have any disagreements. These two guys almost got in a knockdown drag out about a 2-second reminiscence about the transition. You don't remember?
Yeah, I remember. I'm just letting you tell the story, and I'm looking
I feel
at
like
you.
I feel like I need a decoder ring for that. What did that mean?
Our best short film to me is something called Reminiscence we did a long time ago, and it was what, about 11 midnight. And
Yeah.
I won't say where it was done at,
Yeah, don't.
but we weren't using our equipment.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Gotcha.
We were, and there's a,
And this was like 15 years ago.
if not longer.
Yeah, if not
it's been
longer.
almost longer than that. James knows what we're talking about, and there is a transition, a
Yeah.
dissolve into another scene, and it was over about whether it should be another second or two longer. I thought it should be longer, and he thought it should be the way it was.
Yeah.
16 years later, after having this fight, he comes to me and says, you were right.
Yeah. I met you all right after you all had finished that,
Yeah.
and as somebody that has seen it, I don't have a preference.
Nobody gives a shit, Computer James. You added nothing to the story. You're like
I'm
a
just
child
saying.
who wanders into the room.
FN F1. James is done.
I'm kind of worried because
Was
you
that
said that's
probably
your
the
best
first
work,
argument
and I
you ever
wasn't
witnessed?
involved at all.
Was that one of the first arguments you probably witnessed Chad and I ever have?
Yeah.
Probably. So anyway, it can just, you get passionate about something.
Oh,
Something
yeah.
so small. That's the reason why I was wondering about it. What were you going to ask, James?
Well, I was about to say, and I think that's what's really cool about Kickstarter, and I've sponsored a few comics on there myself, is that it lets you all have complete ownership. And you mentioned that earlier, but I think that's what's really different, that you're not having to have somebody over your shoulder saying, no, we need this cover or sex sells or something to get that out there.
I just want to point out, he's sponsoring Kickstarters and he won't pick up a tab for lunch.
I'll be honest, Joe, the Kickstarters are cheaper than buying you lunch.
Oh! That was a fat joke.
High five, James.
Computer James is sassy.
Yeah, man, it's safe
James
enough
has a
distance.
virus.
I know you're not going to drive over here and beat me.
I'm too lazy for that. I'm a lazy man.
Yep.
Too lazy
This is
for
a great
that.
But yeah,
shield. I love this.
No, I've definitely, like, with other creative projects I've done, there have definitely been times where, like, just personality thing like that will definitely butt up
Yeah.
against each other. So, but with this process, it wasn't so much button heads as it was like you were talking about, throw things in the bowl and let's pick out what we want, what we don't want, and make sure that we stay on the same message.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, please.
No, we're real good about like asking each other things. You know what I mean?
I think
like,
because we've worked with other people before,
Yeah.
we kind of understand. Okay,
Yeah, we've both had shitty run-ins in other situations, and being so familiar with each other, and we knew well enough. Like, hey, we'll ask questions and like, hey, you like this? How do you like that? We passed like a million messages back and forth, gifs. Animated gifs like this. Look at this. What if his powers work like that? Like all kinds of stuff. So we super nerded out about it.
Yeah.
And, then we let each other cook.
That's awesome.
yeah.
Before we get into a few more things, I want to ask you all, because I know Ken does this, and I'm not for sure whether you do it or not. Have you guys been to a lot of cons selling your artwork?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, how successful or how unsuccessful is that process for people who might be interested? Because I think that we do have a lot of viewers who go to a lot of cons.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
So mainly our viewership does that. And I think people don't realize that when you have an independent like yourself sitting there, you're not making a living at it. You're trying to cover costs.
Right.
Yeah.
And people look and waste your time and don't really spend their money on autographs and whatever. I don't know, whatever the hell people blow their money on.
Right.
They don't spend it on me either.
Well, yeah, like, I mean, the one thing that a lot of people don't understand is that for those independent artists in the artist alley, they're all paying for those tables.
Right.
So it's not like, oh, they're getting a free ride. They're there. They're already getting paid, and whatever I buy off them is extra. We start off in the red as they say.
Yeah.
And that's just a table. That's not talking about the comics that you just had printed that you paid for,
Right.
right?
Travel.
The travel, depending on where it's at. You were in North Carolina last year?
Yep, with this guy.
Oh, you both were?
Yeah, yeah, and that's honestly, if I was by myself, I wouldn't be able to go. Not because I'm scared to drive by myself, it's because just financially, I wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, you can share a room then, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you've got to pay for food, you got to pay for gas, you got to pay for transportation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, and it's we're not making a living. We're definitely it's to support the art habit, like you were talking about earlier.
It's an obsession.
This obsession. That's to support that obsession, and that's not even getting into art supplies. I mean, I just this week I had to go pick up another art supply. It was $25, and that was on sale. I mean, and that was just one small thing, and that's just. I mean, you have to constantly replenish and things like that.
$3,000 in front of you.
Yeah,
Without even talking about tripods.
Right.
You know, and you get this, and you have this this mixture of like the show and the artist, because the convention is definitely gonna dictate, you know, how well you do.
Right.
But also the artist and the way that you kind of present yourself, or the type of work that you have. So you kind of have to keep in mind the show that you're going to. With us going to comic conventions most of the time, you know, if we're at something that's going to be more celebrity driven, then you're going to have a tougher time selling some of your original stuff. That'd probably be the show you would push your fan art at, because everybody's there to see stuff they know, people they know.
Right.
But
That
if you
makes
go,
sense. I never thought about that.
yeah, but
Me
you know,
neither.
if you go to a show that favors creators,
Like, what would be a show that favors creators?
Lexicon, I think, is a really good show for that.
Yeah, Lexicon. I mean, they do
Which
have
is
a lot
funny
of-
because I would have went the other way, because I think,
Yeah.
and maybe because I only deal with the celebrities by doing moderating.
I mean, they have you know, and this may just be from my personal experience, but I mean, because there are a lot of celebrities that come out to,
but they
to
do have some
Lexicon,
comic book artists. You're
but
right.
they pull a lot of like great creators, and they definitely do a good job at showcasing local, lesser known talent. Like last year when they did a bunch of the exclusive shirts for some of the VIP people, they pulled like me and Justin and just all kind like different artists that didn't really have a whole lot of traffic, and it was a way to kind of showcase us.
That's awesome.
And they don't really, you know, it's never one of those situations where like, because we're usually right there in the mix with the other artists, and you never feel like you're taped off from the superstar artists. Everybody feels good, like you can speak to each other.
Oh, that's nice.
It's a really good vibe.
Yeah.
You know, I've definitely been to shows where, you know, when the celebrity is the whole show. You know, it definitely makes a difference.
And then you get people walking through Artist Alley like it's a museum. And they just kind of go, "Ooh, look, honey," and they just keep on walking. It's like, "No, I want you to buy things.
Yeah.
Come over."
And absolutely, that's what I wanted people to remember is that spending, and we're not talking about spending a lot of money, spending $5 and $10
Sure.
here and there will keep you guys going.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, I mean that's one of the reasons why we do prints and stuff like
Right.
that. We definitely have original pieces. We have original characters, but we do fan art and we do prints as well, because there are some people who are more into artwork than others. But some people would like to pick up a Joker or Casey Jones or something like that and stick it on their wall. And it's like, I am more than happy to provide that because I love drawing those characters. So.
And have a good mix of everything, and plus, we're really good at having our own, like making sure our own style is there, because there's a lot of and not to not shit on anybody. I never do that. But like some you'll see some guys at shows that are very, they find the gimmick and they stick with it.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're really good at copying a certain style exactly. Yeah. And, I think it's worth a little bit more when you've got someone that can say, this is my style and this is my interpretation of things. To where if I can have something original and I can have something that's fan art, and the fan art can still look original, because it looks like, what if Bryce drew, I love Iron Fist, like, so what if Bryce drew an Iron Fist comic, what would his Iron Fist look like?
Yeah.
Or Ken's got all kinds of dope Overwatch and gaming related stuff, so you see his, like, he has this Zenyatta joint that he does, and it's like that looks really, really dope. It doesn't look like somebody else's where they copied it exactly.
Right.
You know?
I was getting ready to judge you for Iron Fist, but one of my favorites Booster Gold, so I can't judge.
Oh, you better not judge me. Oh, no.
James,
No.
you want to get in on this? You want to get in on this?
You better not ever bash Iron Fist running out of Booster Gold.
You want to talk about this Booster Gold
What?
thing?
What are you talking about?
I don't. Here. Hey, you want to hear something funny? I don't even know who the hell that is, but these two have went back and forth about Booster Gold since the show. It comes up about every.
I like
5 or 6
Booster Gold and
episodes.
the Creeper, and everybody gives me shit for it.
Booster Gold might as well be wearing like an Iron Man suit with like NASCAR like advertising. Like Booster Gold sponsored by Pepsi.
How
Like
about this? Iron Fist is a poor man's Richard Dragon. Now what?
don't you dare. He has the chi of a dragon. Damn it. Don't do that.
Did you just say the chi of a dragon? Now
Yes.
I'm judging you.
Look, would you want dragon chi? Hey, you want dragon? I'm just saying.
Hey, I'd go crawl on some snow right now if it said, yeah, well, on the other end, you get some dragon cheese. Like, cool.
I'll
I'd
take
be
some
happy
dragon
with
chi.
some chi.
I'll take dragon chi in a heartbeat. Richard Dragon. Oh no.
Hey James, who's Dick Dragon? Who's Dick Dragon?
Wow.
Haley's writing down names for the show.
This show's gonna be
That's what
called
she's
Dick
doing.
Dragon. Whose dick is dragon? I tell you. Oh well. Yeah.
He helped train the question, who is still better than Iron Fist.
Oh no. What is going on right now?
We'll be leaving here. He's like, what the hell did you get me into? What was this?
But I gotta ask you a
I
question.
actually do like Iron Fist, though.
Were you treated this poorly on other shows?
Well, probably not. No.
Good.
No. You guys are top tier.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Bryce, if you hit Chad, we'll use it for the promo.
She's not joking.
man.
You should go watch some of our stuff. And you get the chance. And
Oh my God.
subscribe on YouTube and iTunes, please. And SoundCloud. So before, and I know where are we at? We're like at 40-some minutes. But before we start wrapping up, where can they go? I mean, I know they can go to Kickstarter, but how exactly do they get there?
If you Google Kickstarter, and pull it up and click.
Hold on. I almost called him a motherfucker. But I didn't. I didn't do it.
I was gonna keep going. I was just gonna do it and keep going.
I didn't do it. Haley, you cool?
You click the bar. K-I-C.
Hold on. You see old man moves. You take out your Computron.
You
have to
found
get on the
AOL.
information superhighway.
We're hip. We've got all the internets.
Sure.
Get on the information superhighway, Joe.
So anyway,
Yeah.
how do they get to your Kickstarter?
You call Al Gore.
So when you're in Kickstarter, you can search. Literally, they have a search engine,
I know they have a search engine.
and you can literally just put in the words "Wardens Watch."
Wardens Watch, that would help.
Yes, Wardens Watch.
See,
And
see if they forgot the name, Ken, from 20 minutes ago.
Uh-huh.
I want them to go now
Wardens
and
Watch.
give you fucking money. Dick.
so is this one of those radar episodes?
It is now.
Wardens Watch.
Yes. Yeah. So and then we are the only thing there.
To quote Ghostbusters, like we
Wardens
do
Watch.
often, I have quit better jobs than this. Yeah. What is James drinking?
Oh,
Coke
perfect.
Zero.
No.
Coke Zero Sugar.
Well,
Sorry.
You should do like a YouTube tutorial on how to Google things.
While eating time cards, right?
You can actually give me more gray hair. I'm starting to get any more. And I go, oh, really? Put the glasses on. That would be funny.
I've been trying to Google all day. How do we do it? Here comes Ken.
Kids got all the Googles.
Let me show you. Let me
show you. K-I-C-K.
Why did you, when you do your impersonation of Kenny, sounds like a porn star?
I mean,
Cross with Barry White.
Well, back before the beard, it was all mustache, and you go from there.
Okay.
yeah, I
All right,
mean,
there
you know, he's like 8 feet tall, and I'm just saying, you know, the big spoon. We cuddled up through some of this.
Yeah, I mean, we shared an hotel room a couple times, so I mean, you do
Still
what you
can't
gotta
open
do.
a jar of pickles for a damn, though. Sorry, don't hurt me.
What the hell did the pickle thing?
I don't know.
You go play with your booster
thought about
goals.
the
And you go play with your internet.
Right.
You go play with your...
best time traveling superhero ever.
Booster Gold?
Yes.
Wow.
Really?
Yes.
He said, forget Doctor Who. We've never played Chrono Trigger, none of that. Booster motherfucking Gold. What? Wow. Oh,
I will give you that
man.
Booster Gold may be slightly better than NFL Super Pro, but that's about it.
Oh, man.
So, what shows you guys going to be at? Coming up, if our audience is out there going to some cons, you guys going to be at LexCon?
We will be at LexCon.
Yes.
Are you going to be at the same table? Because he was with some white chick last year.
No. I will be with the same white chick.
Oh, okay.
She's a good friend, Amanda Crum, fantastic artist.
Oh, yeah, I know her on Facebook.
Yeah. He, I believe you're upstairs.
Yeah, I'll be upstairs. You know,
Yeah.
where upstairs? Not sure, but I'm up there.
Yeah.
So,
covering as much ground as possible. You can't find one.
Are
you'll
you guys
find
going to
the other.
be? Can we buy the book at either place? Will you have the book with you? No, I guess not.
We will not.
Right.
The Kickstarter will be running just past
Okay,
the
good.
LCTC.
Well, good. Then you'll be able to hand out all that information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you're having trouble Googling Kickstarter right now,
you open the laptop,
then you come see me at LCTC. I will get you there.
you press the buttons,
Now you're starting to sound like a slight Bill Cosby. What you putting?
then you boost the gold.
And then you slip on the roofie.
Oh.
Got him.
Hey,
Got him.
do you have any artists that are going to be with you at the table, or do you have your own table by yourself?
No, I'll be up there solo.
Oh,
Yep.
so
yep.
you just need someone to hold your hand.
Well, technically, it's two separate tables. She's got the one table, I got the other.
I just remember you both being at the same table.
But we were just standing there.
I drink a lot.
Oh, okay.
I don't.
Especially during LCTC.
He's got an advantage because I need focus. So I might need to have somebody attached to my table.
I doubt that. Well, definitely we'll stop by. So people can stop
Absolutely.
by at Comic Con. Do you have any other cons coming up? I just want to make sure that we
And
get all.
tell him how awesome Booster Gold is.
Hey, I'll tell you what. Will you make them a deal if they're watching? Will you do something for them if they stop by the table and mention Bonehead? I will hook you up. We'll work something out.
Yeah. I mean, if you got an idea.
We'll get an idea. If you will stop by one of their tables, subscribe to Bonehead, subscribe to them, do the Kickstarter, talk to them, mention that you saw them on Bonehead or talk about us. We will hook you up with something.
Yeah.
You just let us know. We will keep some names. How about we keep a list at the two tables, and then we will do something for you about it.
And you could pick your way that you'd like Booster Gold to die. And I'm just playing. I'm not gonna kill you.
There's a bunch of decapitated booster
There's all
goals.
kinds of
No,
Booster.
the last time he was in the DC comic books, they literally he was there one day and then he just disappeared from existence. That's how they got rid of Booster Gold. It just disappeared.
Because ain't nobody about to ask questions.
I vote for a very painful STD.
What?
Do I?
You said you had a painful STD.
I vote for Booster Gold dying by a very painful STD.
Ooh.
What? Kill the humor in the room.
Yeah.
Like is it like Alien, like a chest explode except out the crotch? I mean,
basically.
You know,
It's called the
Skeets
super
was-
syphilis.
Skeets was possessed by Mr. Mind at one point.
Super syphilis.
Super syphilis.
Super syphilis.
It's not a drip, it's a hose.
Oh,
But yeah, I think
Dropsy.
as far as like the rest of the year, I mean, we usually do Derby City.
Yeah.
If it's a local show, chances are we'll be popping up at the local show.
Yeah.
I know there's a Frankfurt con
Yeah.
I saw that in July.
Yeah, it's kind of what we're going back to earlier is, having to pay for tables and travel and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on how one show goes, you can fund the next one, or maybe you have to wait two more shows, that kind of thing.
I totally understand.
There's a strong possibility I might be going to, I might be popping up in Atlanta and
At Dragon Con?
going back to North Carolina as well.
Which one in
That'll
Atlanta?
be
Is it Dragon
pending.
Con?
No, it's not Dragon Con. It's a different show that I found online, and it seems pretty good. I've never been to Atlanta, so gonna.
No, found it online. Ask Dylan. Yeah, he said, "Come on down."
Hey, we've been doing this long enough to know the warning signs as soon as you walk in.
Yeah.
What's a good warning sign?
Warning sign. You walk in and there's nobody there, and there's some dude in a ripped up T-shirt comes up to you, he's like, "Are you here for the show?"
Yep.
And you just go, "Nope," and you just leave.
Yep.
Is this a Denny's?
Yeah.
That's a good story.
You do your research. You see how long the show's been there, and this and that, and then you shoot your shot. That's what we did with North Carolina.
Yeah, it was a good time.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what's up. But yeah, like he said, it kind of depends. The success of one will lead to the next.
That's cool. All right, you guys have any more questions? Shut the hell up, Computer James.
Love you.
You have anything else? All right.
Booster gold
anything else
forever. That's what I'm saying.
Anything else you guys want to promote? You good?
Yeah, they're just my handles online, Osiris.smiles on Instagram, Osiris_smiles on Twitter, because Twitter hates dot. I don't know why.
All I got to say, Dragon Fist, Hand Blaster, who wins? That's
I don't
all.
know what was going
Would
on.
you let it go? All I saw was sexual fisting kind of things.
He did.
Sorry.
He did the Rhythm Nation dance moves.
I realized after I did it, I'm like, holy crap, I got rhythm and I didn't even know it.
You do not, sir. You are whiter than white.
I am.
I've got no rhythm. I'm
on Instagram
who could be whiter than I don't know.
at BMad100s, and then I'm on Twitter at Mr. Mad100s.
Okay.
So if you guys
Mr.
find us on
Manhunters.
any social media, you will see links to our Kickstarter if you don't go out into the Googles.
Yeah.
Here's what's
search.
funny is we need to start following each other on Twitter. I just realized we're not doing that on Instagram or Twitter. All right. We'll
And check out Brawl and Slum Rising.
Yeah, it's our independent comic books.
as well.
Which I believe you bought a copy of at one point
Absolutely.
in time.
Oh, yeah, I've read that. It's really good.
Yeah. It's signed by you.
Of course.
Try to support your artists, folks. Your local artists especially. They're out there trying to make a dime, trying to live their dreams. They're not asking to get rich, although we would love to get rich. If
I wouldn't be mad at it.
I wouldn't be mad at it. I would be mad at it all. That's a really good way to put it. So support them. If you see this show before Comic-Con, stop by their table, tell them you saw us on there. If you see me, I'll be moderating a Comic-Con again this year. Slop
some pigs.
Yeah, some pig. Come on down. Let's go, Lewis. All right, so stop on by. I don't know where the hell that came from. Stop by and say hi. Anyway, I've been Joe.
Talk. He can't see your thumb.
I think he's frozen. Oh no! Okay, well.
That was computer mediated James.
Is Zorro on?
Booster Gold. Amazing.
Bryce and Kit, thank you so much. Stop by, look at their Kickstarter. We'll see you next week on Bonehead. Thanks.
Help this man.
Peace out. Home chillin'. We're going to go out and get pizza and get drunk. We're not. I've got to go to work.
Ha.
Picking your nose, James.
I don't know why we didn't cut one of us out before and put them on the computer.
Picking your nose,
Maybe we
James.
should take a turn about doing this.
Maybe what I should do next time is actually just bring my laptop and
just
sit in the
Skype in
same
from
room.
upstairs.
Yeah.
Holy shit, that'd be amazing.